and welcome to It's Your Voice. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco, and this is episode 15. The topic is letting go of victimization. And this is a chapter 3 in my Live Free book that can be found on Amazon. It talks about, in that chapter, how I let go of victimization, how I transformed and went into my higher power, lifted myself from beneath and rose above. Victimization is something that we'll all suffer from. We are all victims at one time or another. That being said, we're going to move into what it is and how we become a victim. How do we get to be a victim? My statement for this week, which I put up these little blocks once a week on my Facebook page, people suffer because they are waiting for others to deliver them. And that is something that what happens is we become conditioned and programmed to believe we're a victim. But we also sometimes acquiesce to that and we play it. Some people play being a victim. This show, this program, the title, It's Your Voice, is dedicated to the DonnaGentileStory.com, a true crime book I wrote on a woman who was silenced but had her voice, or at least wanted her voice. So this show is dedicated to Donna Gentile's story, the DonnaGentileStory.com, and all the voiceless women of the world. May your voice be heard. This is a compilation of topics under the subjects of mindfulness, sexuality, and relationships. So let's talk about what it is to be a victim and how we become trapped as a victim. It's a real conundrum because victimization keeps you down because of the unresolved trauma that's living in your body. We are trapped, and it actually controls you. So it's a form of mental programming, conditioning. How do we get there? Perpetrators, abusers, bystanders, not because we want to be a victim, but because we are using it as a survivor tool, and we are overdeveloping the ego so that we can have a way of survival. And there's only so much of this that you can do, because when your ego is overdeveloped and you continually live in survivor mode, you develop what we call narcissistic personality traits, psychopathic traits, denial, character. A myriad of things can happen to your authentic human being that was once innocence, and it still can be, and you can get back there. So it's about letting go of all the negative stuff that binds you. And really, victimization is a fight against what you were given and what you have, what cards you have were dealt for you, what foundation you come from in growing up. What were you a child that came from a divorced family, didn't get enough attention, didn't get enough love? Or were you someone that was bullied in school? Or whatever the case was, it certainly left you in a patterned form of thinking and shapes, things that happen to us, our experiences. We become frozen, we become armored, we become shut down. And this is how you feel that no one likes you when you're a victim. So again, as I said in the beginning, people suffer because they're waiting for others to deliver them. And I know we all need support and help. So the support and help is out there. You just have to seek it. You need to go to therapy. We don't expect you to do it alone. So you want to pull yourself out of the fire and recreate yourself. And my book, Live Free, it's Recreate and Liberate Your Life, is the subtitle. So getting back to how this programming forms, when you're some of the things that come from being a victim, it stems from trauma, betrayal, codependency, manipulation, physical or psychological. It's a physical or psychological event that may take place in your life that would trigger you and open up that can of worms or trigger your emotions to become hardened or depleted or inhibited, and you become suppressed. So what happens over time when we're suppressed? We don't express our emotions. We don't cry. And these are the things that you need to do to help yourself, or at least to keep the emotions fresh and moving. Now, there's a lot of stuff about self-blame and transference, and the lessons are learned. And we learn from our parents who we should trust, who we shouldn't trust. These are learned behaviors. And one of the things about self-blame that I wanted to talk to you about, since we're on the subject of victimization, you have Gabby Petito, the murder victim case out there, and Brian Laundrie. They are victims right now. They are two victims. So speaking about self-blame, she was a woman. They were stopped by the police. Someone called the 911, noticed them fighting in the car. And out of fear, she didn't tell the police that he was abusing her. She didn't say anything. She probably was in so much fear for the retaliation that he would, bring on her after the police left, which, as you see, allegedly he could be her murderer, as it looks that way. But keeping in mind, she had so much fear, and she didn't have much resilience left. She had a little bit of resilience left because, like I said, sometimes it's hard to bounce back from your resilience. What I'm saying right now, if you have a lot of head chatter over the years as time goes on, between her fear and being in love with him, and acquiescence to the situation that she was in, the police didn't take it serious. They didn't take it serious. They're not trained therapists or coaches to see how a woman is in denial, how a victim is in denial, and how she was trying to protect him rather than herself. That's one red flag. The second red flag, to leave them in a desolate area as the Mojave Desert, where the Mojave Desert is an area that's desolate. There aren't any stores or buildings or anything like that. If this were an inner city somewhere, I would have said okay. But the fact that so many murders happen in deserts, in forests, and desolate areas, the fact that she was, someone had called the 911 because they noticed the car swerving and the fighting going on, this should have alarmed the police to actually have her call her parents to pick her up. But again, they didn't see the psychological part of the victimization, that she was in fear. She presented herself as I'm okay, I'm a hero, I'm resilient. But your resiliency is something that it's the ego. It's controlling the part of you, the fear, the sadness, the anger. The fear, sadness, and the anger is where your victimization is. You're angry, but it's hidden. Once you get to the anger, the fear lifts, and then the sadness opens up. And then the third part of this with Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie is that, making an imprint to teach your boys not to, from a very young age, not to physicalize a woman in any way. And, it's not only the mother that has to teach the boy this, but the father as well. So the mother and the father need to teach the boy. I mean, the girls are taught to, not to go with strange men, and they're vulnerable, but they're also taught to be nurturers to the boy or the man. And so this is something that can get them into a victimization pattern, because they're not looking out for themselves. So just wanted to touch base on that, because we're talking about self-blame and transference. And sometimes as a victim, people may treat you differently. And if they do treat you differently, that might give you an opportunity to loosen up the victim style that you're living. Because victimization is a style, it's a character. And what I'm going to suggest is this relationship to your own feelings, building a relationship to your inner child. Now, I do inner child work, so this becoming connected and bonded with your inner child, and together you work to bring the split together. And once that split solidifies, you are then back on track as a whole human being. But you need the help, and sometimes to seek the help from your best friends that could be fixating on you or codependent on you, or a vampire toward you, stealing your power or taking advantage of your weakness. So we have to really have the presence awareness, which sometimes if you're living in the victimization headset, you may not have the presence and awareness. And these are the things that you need to save yourself. And because you're in denial at times. So having this relationship, building a relationship to your inner child, is going to be the first step out. And once you have this attachment to your inner child, it's a savior for you. It's where you go to help yourself. Now, we decide consciously or subconsciously what kind of world we live in. Not the kind of world we want to live in, the world we live in, so that you yourself live in. We then analyze our relationship to the constructed world. So you look at the kind of world you're living in, and what is that world? And then comparing it and the relationship to the constructed world. Does it meet your expectations or surprises? So if it doesn't meet your expectations, you may be living in a headset, something similar to the world is against me, everyone hates me, I'm not good enough. And so these kinds of sayings are the most commonest statements that a person that doesn't have confidence or self-esteem, that classifies themselves as a victim, would be reciting all day in their head. It's chatter. So the healthier you become, this shift will happen, and then you will feel as though you're blending with the world. We're never really blending with the world, but you will feel that you are. And you can reinforce this belief that people and the world suck, right? You can reinforce that belief, and you can become more positive, more courageous, more renewed. This brings us to letting go, breaking out of the strong triangle of victimization, the abuser, and victimization triangle. So again, like I said, it all requires a shift. And if the shift happens, but you have to understand that you must do the work, okay? The work is you have to apply yourself. With being a victim comes shame and hiding, losing the voice, suppressing, so what our goal is to align your feelings, your emotions, and your thought. So you have feelings, you have the thought, and you have action. So feelings, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? Are your thoughts aligning up with your feelings? Are your thoughts and feelings aligning up with your actions? And that is the second step to applying yourself. The process of being victimized, like I said, is physical or psychological, and there are many triggers that can happen. So if you have, say, a car accident, well, you haven't had any emotional issues in your life, all of a sudden you may be triggered with some old emotional patterns that may arise, that may emerge. And if so, or new things can develop as a result of that. It's out of our control sometimes. Assaults, accidents, things of that nature. So part of being a victim, and part of, like, say, example, you get in a car accident, or you're the type that falls and fractures your ankle here and there, you're the type that gets in like stupid little accidents, little trivial accidents for no reason, bumping your head or falling down or getting hurt at the gym. It's because you're off center. You know, there's your body is reinforced with like stress, shock, numbness, helplessness, vulnerability, anger, fear, and confusion. All of that is sucked into the body. It's suppressed. So once you start to lift this and do the work, then what happens is that you're able to become more connected to your higher power and your feelings, and how to connect and bring that split together. It takes a lot of work to do this, but the more accidents that we have, they're accidents. They are wake-up calls to tell you that you need to pay attention. It's called attention intention, paying attention to the voice inside, paying attention to yourself, paying attention to your needs, loving yourself. How about that one? So again, shame is there, self-blame, self-shaming. It's often seen, self-shaming in substance abuse users, addiction. But this whole thing with victimization and abuse is also an addiction to the cellular nervous system. So this addiction becomes a pattern, and it repeats and repeats. So the reason we have to undo the layers and start with the body, the somatic body, is so that we can, because in the body is the brain body, the pain body, the brain body, the pain body. And like I said, you have anger, you have fear, and you have sadness. And around the anger, the fear, and the sadness are spiraling. So once you lift that anger, the fear starts to fly. And then you become the dance of life. The things that affect victims more so, they may trigger, is anxiety and fear. Because again, a lot of them feel isolated. They don't trust people. But then remember, we're all victims, but there are different degrees of being a victim. Or if you believe you're a victim, people are victims because they're in survivor mode most of the time. So we have to address many factors. We have to go way back. You need to make a list. 3 factors of a victim mentality. Bad things will always happen to me. No one likes me. No one loves me. I'm not attractive enough. Or other people are the blame. And the biggest thing for a victim mentality is change is a fail. So they fear making change because it's coming out of the comfort zone. It's coming out of that survivor mode. So they need help. And too much negative self-talk from the self and from others, especially from the self, damages the resilience, the resilience that we have. The resilience is about, bouncing back. So if you don't have enough resilience, it will be harder to bounce back. So we need that resilience. It's a reservoir. It's a savior. It's the inspiration of your emotions, having resilience. And people that are victims, they generally lack power. They're more followers than leaders. They have a negative head chatter and self-sabotage. And no one cares about me. Self-inflicting actions. The biggest thing is no one cares about me. There's a lot of emotions that are dormant that need to come up. Once you lift them, you will feel much more enlightened, empowered, and able to take the next step in your life. And I can help you do that. A few other things. Victimization comes from, again, trauma, betrayal, codependency, manipulation. Now, there could be people in your life that are fixated on you psychosexually, psychosocially. They're just fixated on you. They have a hold on you, and they're perpetrators. They come in and suck you. They see the weakness in you, and because your boundaries are, you're an open door, you're an open page for someone, that they can come in and have a control on you and play you like a chessboard. And so you have to be very careful because the victim is very vulnerable, and you can be manipulated. People, and you or someone else, both of you can have the victim mentality and codepend on each other. So it's really important to emancipate and rise above and stay connected to the higher power. I know the higher power sounds like it's something might be out of your reach, but it's there. The higher power just comes when you start to do the work, because the victimization is an emotional weigh down on the physical and spiritual body. It's a stigma. It's a stigma around the victim. It's in the way that people blame, the way that people label you. So one thing that your friends can do is to encourage you. Your friends can be there to validate you. So I need you to, if your friends are putting you down or condescending you or labeling you as a victim, express yourself, assert yourself. Come out and tell them to give you validation and support, that you don't appreciate being labeled that way, because that will keep you will sink further down. It's a subordinate way of keeping you passive. So what thing is, you want to confront them in the way, with the voice, that you're learning how to have your voice. And on that note, we are going to finish up here. This is It's Your Voice podcast. I'm your host, Anita DeFrancesco. Episode 15, Letting Go of Victimization, TantraWisdom.com, the DonnaGentileStory.com. These are my websites. The Donna Gentile Story is a book can be found on Amazon. My other book is Live Free, which can be found on Amazon as well. Thank you for tuning in.